yeah, 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 D, I love, yeah, yeah, D, I love, yeah, yeah, D, I love, we about to turn it up, yeah, D, I love, yeah, D, I love, yeah, D, I love, we about to turn it up, okay, stand to your feet when you hear them drums, you know it's the JSU band, J-Sets in the crowd, they doing they moves, they doing they dance, we done started a party, and it's not gonna end until the morning, yeah, Sonic boom, we sorry, red, blue, and white, everywhere we go, and who you know, that's better than us in Capital City, yeah, we got prime time, so it's my time, we finna be litty. Yeah, and we don't speak on the team with the A. That tiger bites, so don't get in his face. Don't let the tigers up out of their cage. No move.
Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, hello everybody. I don't know if you guys can hear all that construction. Can you guys hear me? Thank you for tuning into my live. I just wanted to do a quick live on Bethune Cookman and the current events that are going on down in Daytona, Florida, and just get your thoughts on the protests and what's going on. Let's take a look at some of the videos. I'm gonna go ahead and put those up so you guys can watch the events that are happening on campus.
Now! Change! Now! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats!
We're here today for a cause. Ed Reed is not the only cause. We're here for new leadership at Bethune Cookman University. This is leadership right here. Look around.
Ed Reed was right! Ed Reed was right!
This is leadership.
Ed Reed was right!
This is leadership.
Now! Read! Now!
As you can see, this is not a small protest. This is actually the majority of the students on campus have came together to basically protest. Now, what I wanted to talk about is they're asking for the removal of the Board of Trustees. And there has been a lot of requests over the years. There was even a protest back in April of last year ran by, I'm going to pull that up so you guys can take a look at that. And basically, there's been multiple protests that came about. This one was in April, but it was a virtual type of rally. And I wasn't able to get in contact with Mrs. I guess her name is Mrs. Shorter. I wasn't able to get in contact with her to ask her some questions. But basically, they're concerned with the way that Bethune Cookman has been handled by the Board of Trustees. So this is not actually the first protest that's taken place. They said there's a lack of transparency, things go unnoticed. And I think it needs to be highlighted that for some reason the Board of Trustees, they decertified the Alumni Association. And Mario's asking if Ed Reed was white, why they didn't say anything before, or why even attend the school. So I think maybe the students felt empowered by Ed Reed, and that could possibly be why they decided to protest, is because Ed Reed empowered them to speak up and say something. Like, I'm gonna see if I can get on Randall Barnes, because he wrote basically he wrote an op-ed about the current situation in Bethune, so that he can come on here and share his thoughts. But there is evidence that there's been protests over time. Like, this is not the first time that people have reached out to protest about Bethune Cookman and the Board of Trustees. And as you know, the administration doesn't currently have a president. Right now they have an interim president. And it's been like that for a while. So I think it's important to notice that the administration is already fractured. Like, they already don't have certain people in place. So I would think that the kids, we have somebody that's going to come on tomorrow. There's these kids that they want help, but Ed Reed's voice and how loud he was and how forceful he was, a lot of students have never probably seen that happen. So maybe that's why they were empowered to take a stand and say something. For me, I hope that the message doesn't get lost just in Ed Reed. So they were complaining about mold. They were complaining about food. One of the football players went on HBCU Overdrive, and he said that they didn't have proper helmets. They didn't have proper equipment for football. They also said there were some housing issues. So I think it's pretty big that they're able to get this much limelight. And a lot of people are saying the reason why they're getting so much attention is because of Ed Reed. And that if it wasn't for Ed Reed, that the students wouldn't get this much coverage. So let me see. I want to show you guys the pictures of the mold, because if you actually see like the molded bed, there's like mold all over one of the students' beds. But my only question to that is that mold because of the hurricane, or is that mold because they just have molded dorms? One of the students said that they've had mold and rats in their dorm rooms, which I also don't know if possibly the fact that Florida's a different climate and they're right there, not a couple miles off from the shore, does that affect the humidity? Does that affect like whether or not maybe if stuff gets wet, the mushrooms grow faster? I'm not sure if the humidity would affect that. But I do have pictures that I wanted to show you of the actual mold. So let me see if I can pull that up. And I'm sure that the administration, not just the administration, but the staff, that everybody is probably really, really stressed out. Can you imagine you had to get rid of the coach that you thought was going to bring about change, and there was a big hoopla about that. Now you got the students protesting, and there's a big thing about that. Are they canceling class? Like, where are they going to go from here? And how long does this draw out? Because sometimes people protest 1 or 2 days and then they go on about their business. Other times you see it escalate. Let me see. And I sent you the link. Tomorrow Leader Sports Network, I sent you a link so you can come and join. And then Miss Jobs says, I question the academic quality of the school. For years, I had tried to hire BCU grads for Fortune 500 companies. Not one could make it through the hiring process. I think that is more than likely a stretch. I'm going to go ahead and look up some of Bethune Cookman's most notable alums to dispute that. So it looks like they have a lot of professional football players and professional football and professional NBA players. Let me see if I can share this. So I definitely would not question the academic quality. I think that's a bit of a stretch to say that because a person graduates from an HBCU that they would not be able to fare where other applicants are. Oh, you guys can hear that. That's construction. Let me see. Share screen. I might have to let in my live early because they're doing some construction downstairs. Okay, so there's TT Tolliver, Nick Collins, Harry T. Moore, Rashawn Mathis, Booby Clark, Booker Reese. These are some of the most notable alumni for Bethune-Cookman. A lot of NFL players, a lot of NBA players too. What's this? This is a Canadian baseball player. He graduated from Bethune-Cookman. A member of the Puerto Rico Senate, Carmelo Rios Santiago. He's a graduate of Bethune-Cookman. Wow. I didn't know that. Let's see. Uh-oh. I'm going to have to end my live early. It's too much noise. So as you can see, all those wonderful, notable alumni. Let me see. Let me see. But here's the names of the alumni. The Honorable Belvin Berry Jr. Esquire. I guess he's a lawyer. Jeffrey Branch. All of these are the Board of Trustees. All of these are the Board of Trustees. And so what I would venture to say is when you do a protest, there is a certain thing that you have to do. So when you're doing a protest, you do need to have a set of demands of what it is that you're asking for. So I've seen that they said hire Ed Reed and we want different changes, but like I'm wondering how organized it is in saying these are the actions that we want to take place. So removal of the Board of Trustees. We want, they said that the air conditioning wasn't working. So air conditioning fixed. The dorms, they need to, which I'm kind of like, I'm not going to say rats and mold happen all over the place, but I'm wondering why is it that Ed Reed, it took Ed Reed for you to talk about the mold and the rats, or is it that you guys have said things about the mold and the rats and people just they didn't pay attention? Like that's the difference. I want to know, like, Why is it taking for Ed Reed to say all of this stuff that you guys feel the need to speak up? And then this one says, not what I'm saying. I graduated from HBCU, as did my son. I specifically tried to place them with Geico and Citibank. Not one was hired. So I can't really speak to the hiring process at Citibank or Geico. And maybe those specific students just weren't a good fit for that particular job. And for those of you just joining, I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and replay the protest again so that you guys can see it. And then I'm going to see if I can find the pictures of that mold that I saw on Twitter, where there was mold on a student's bed and, like, I guess mushrooms were coming out of the bathroom, which
Now! Change! Now! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! We're here today for a cause. Ed Reed is not the only cause. We're here for new leadership at Bethune Cookman University. This is leadership right here. Look around. Ed Reed was right. Ed Reed was right. This is leadership. Ed Reed was right. This is leadership. Now. Read. Now.
a lot of the sentiments online are that the administration is just going to wait this out and see if it blows over, which a lot of times protests can lose traction depending on how serious the protesters are and whether or not they're forced. Are they going to be forced to go to class? Are they going to be affected? Like, will the professors take like a negative action if they don't show up for class? That's crazy. So, the person that was leading this, his name is Austin Yankoe. If you guys get a chance, go to HBCU Overdrive and take a look at his interview. And basically, he was highlighting that some of the issues were mold in their football helmets. They were having to share football helmets. Hang on just a second. Okay. And I'm going to read to you a statement. This is from the running back Jaden Bivens. And this is from HBCU Premier Sports that they posted it. And it says, Coach Ed Reed loved my film and gave me a chance, which is like, yeah, he wasn't officially signed with contract, but it had been about 3 weeks before he actually came forward on campus. So I'm guessing that Ed Reed was actively recruiting from the day that they agreed in principle, even though he didn't have a signed contract. So this says, Coach Ed Reed loved my film and gave me a chance. We had big things coming, but before all of that, we talked about being a man every day at his 3 weeks here at 7:30. He could care less about football and wanted to mold us into accountable and responsible men. In these couple of weeks, he's done more for us and this school than the people who've been here for years. The criticism he gave me may not have been the right way to speak about it, but nothing he said was wrong, and the whole school is standing with him. He wanted better for this school and each individual. Forget the football, forget money. He didn't care. It was about us. Prideful people in the higher ups didn't like what was said, and even though Coach put his pride aside to apologize for the way he said things, they couldn't put the pride aside and accept it. This is bigger than all of that, and we need Coach Reed. Hail Wildcats. So this is one of the student athletes that is on campus. And that's his statement. So he's basically letting you know, well, these students are letting you know the personal connection that they were able to build with Ed Reed before, and this is before all of the explosion that happened. So I'm wondering if maybe during these 3 weeks that he was there, during the 3 weeks that he was there, maybe he started uncovering more and more and more and more things that were wrong with the university. And so then it was a buildup to the point where he just exploded. That would probably explain why he was so upset. But I'm still going to always run with the narrative that you absolutely cannot cuss out your employer. Like, there's nowhere in America that this could happen. It's just not feasible. And then his apology, it seemed like it was not genuine. And then the fact that he went off again in the very same manner also tells me that it wasn't genuine. So basically, I said what I said, and it is what it is. You can't come back from that. I don't know how you're going to be able to come back. Like, I don't know how Ed Reed would be able to come back now. Not only because he disrespected once, but twice. That's his second time. And the second time, no, wait, that would be his third time. His third time, and that was the most egregious of all, because then you got Deion Sanders involved. And it's kind of like you can't beat somebody into submission, so you can't force them to hire you back. And then I'm not trying to make up an excuse, because there's absolutely no excuse for students to have to live in those type of living conditions. But there are other universities that have mold in their dorms. And I guarantee you the amount of problems, they're not getting reported. Like, they might get reported, but they don't get like blasted how we are. So basically, whenever something happens in HBCU realm, when it's purported out to the news media, they always like amplify it. So basically, there's a lot of white schools who have mold in their dorms. I can show you. Hundreds of USC students complain of mold growth in on-campus dorms. Now, mind you, they didn't have to like go on national news, and they didn't have to protest about it, but it gets reported all the time. And I'm going to show this to you just so that you know we're just putting a framework on things, because listen, no student should have to live in moldy dorms. You should not have to do that. But let's pull back a little bit and put it into context. It says, hundreds of students struggle with mold in campus dorms. USC system unfit to analyze reports. So basically, this is not exclusive to Bethune Cookman. It says over 130 mold maintenance requests have been submitted. So now, what have we always learned about when we talk about mold in it said hundreds of Clemson students filed mold reports. That was in October of 2002. Hundreds of Clemson students filed mold reports in 2022. And there's the pictures of it. And once again, this is definitely, I'm not excusing the fact that Bethune Cookman didn't have clean dorm rooms for students. I'm definitely not doing that. But what I'm saying to you is these mold issues and incidents, they happen across the board. But the reason why they're exacerbated by HBCUs such as Bethune Cookman is because they have the lack of funding to mitigate these issues quickly. Colleges do not teach you how to find a job for a Black student. I went to a PWI and an HBCU. I would have to definitely agree with you there. Hey, Miss Veronica. And so that's what I wanted to show you guys is that, and listen, Clemson, USC, what is this, VCU? Over 500 reports of mold in student housing filed since 2020. San Diego State students concerned about mold in their dorm room air vents. Livingstone College students say mold in dorm. So listen, Kent State working to address mold issues. Here's one. This is Ohio State. Or no, is this Ohio? Let me see. Let's see what this is. Oh no, this is University of Oklahoma. It says a former University of Oklahoma student is suing the institution over mold exposure. So she's suing now in 2022, but this happened in 2018, which I think that's good that we see this particular 2018 report, because that means that these white institutions, they also have issues with mold. And they are hey Doc. Yeah, you can come join my live. I'm gonna send you the link so you can join my live. But it's very important to point out that Clemson, all of these different schools, they also have 300, 400, 500 cases where they've experienced mold. And it says LSU student just exposed living conditions last year on their news channel. And yeah, so please do not and sometimes the media, sometimes they will I like that they're covering the protests. Don't get me wrong. I really like that they're covering the protest. But I don't want, sometimes the media can make it seem like it's an HBCU only problem. Now, we done seen the narrative being pushed out there. The HBCU, they have so many problems. Yes. But I would venture to say that, once again, like I showed you, they're not mutually exclusive to HBCUs. Another problem that they were complaining about is the sports equipment. So the young man that I shared with you earlier, he indicated that there was mold in their helmets. Now, the equipment thing, I definitely feel like that's something that should not happen ever. Like, you should definitely have proper equipment and attire. And I don't think that's another reason why it wasn't fair for Coach Sims for you to just fire him that quickly, because you know he's trying to do the best that he can with what he has. Like, I can't imagine, hey, Jay Blue, I'm going to send you the link so you can come talk about your thoughts. Is that really the type of exposure that BCU wanted with hiring Ed Reed? Listen, I don't think they knew that he was going to, I don't think they knew he was going that far. I honestly did not, he didn't come across as, we didn't hear, like it was just silence. And then all of a sudden, an explosion. So I think that nobody expected for it to be that big. I think BCU felt like he was going to be similar to Dion, meaning he was going to bring exposure, he was going to bring funds, which what he said that he was. He said that he was going to bring that too. He said, I'm bringing my friends. He bought Edgar and James. He said he had billionaires. And Marlito Sports Network says, don't forget the football program didn't have access to their facility until a few weeks before the 2021 football season either. And I'm wondering if a lot of the mold or the lack of equipment. So this is what I think happened. You know, they had a COVID year. They just went ahead and canceled everything. So Bethune Cookman is right there, probably not even 4 or 5 miles from the ocean. So if you can imagine the equipment just sitting there, not being moved, not being utilized, just sitting there and collecting dust. And it probably did grow some mold. It probably did grow some mold. And they had COVID year, and then so a lot of their stuff probably was even destroyed. And if it's COVID, that means that you have no money coming in out. Like you have to reduce all of these expenditures. And then your enrollment continually is dropping. Of course, you're not getting ready to go and buy brand new helmets. And I'm going to see if I can pull up. Thank you for the word humidity. So the humidity could have contributed to it. And the fact that they were just sitting there for a whole season, just sitting there because COVID, everything got shut down. And I'm going to see if I can find some information, like maybe a short video from LSU exposing the mold in their dorm rooms. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to make sure that okay, here it is right here. And I'm going to play it on mute because I don't want to get, I don't know if I can, let me see.
Think might be causing this sickness. LSU students where she claims there is mold growth almost everywhere you look. 2 weeks into the semester, Sarah began developing symptoms.
Like I was getting migraines behind my eyes.
Migraines behind the eyes.
You can develop infections, cough.
So basically, the reason why you guys can go to that actual channel and go and look at it. But this is LSU that we're talking about. This is not mutually exclusive to HBCUs. So they had mold. Everywhere you turn, they had mold. And it's not something that, you know, and mind you, this is not something that happened 10 years ago. This happened 3 months ago. Black mold has nicknamed brain damage. If only the campus was as beautiful as the football stadium. It's old and needs upgrading. Mind you, this now, let's keep it a buck now. This is a PWI. They have millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they're taking some of the money that should be put towards the other institutions in Louisiana as well. See that? You see this mold? And you know what? I want to make this abundantly clear. I am not excusing the behavior of, or not behavior, but the lack of facilities management coming in or whatever they needed to do to remove the mold. I am not making an excuse for them. But what I am going to say is this: let's pull back on Bethune Cookman and figure out how to solve it. If LSU is having these problems, if University of, I think Alabama had some mold problems too, if Clemson is having these issues, then can you imagine that you don't even have the amount of money that these schools have coming in, not even a fourth. Then on top of that, the state is not providing you any money. Basically, the PWIs, they get their set amount of money. On top of that, they're going to get the money that's supposed to be given towards HBCUs. They're getting that too. And then they're getting donations from alumni. So they're getting it threefold. Whereas HBCUs, the majority of their money comes from grants, research, and we do get money from the alumni. But now, instead of the alumni money that's being donated, instead of it being spent on extra, they use it towards maintenance or programs, institutional advancement. Like, we are not able to put it towards the athletics. So this is LSU now, and they're having mold issues. I'm not even going to say just as bad, if not worse, because I actually haven't heard any of the students complain about mold like in the buildings. And this was like in one of the university's buildings, not just the dorm rooms. And you guys, you have to excuse the noise. So some of this is just, they don't have people cleaning, I guess. But they have way too much money to excuse that. Not make an excuse for Bethune. There's somebody doing some construction downstairs. The stadium and athletics facilities are the only thing that are upkept at LSU. Oh wait, let me go ahead and get him on. Yay! Good. I'm glad you guys came, so I don't have to talk anymore.
How you doing?
I'm good. So everybody, if you're tuning in just now, we have Jay Blue, Randall Barnes, and Doc Holliday that have came to give their take on the protest. Thank you guys for joining my channel. I'm going to play the video once again, for anybody who's just now tuning in, and then I want to get your thoughts from each of you about what you think about it.
Now! Change! Now! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! Hell Wildcats! We're here today for a cause. Ed Reed is not the only cause. We're here for new leadership at Bethune Cookman University. This is leadership right here. Look around. Ed Reed was right. Ed Reed was right. This is leadership. Ed Reed was right. This is leadership. Now. Read. Now.
Randall, can I know that you wrote an op-ed on the Bethune-Cookman, the Ed Reed situation. Can you expound a little bit about the article you wrote, and what do you think about the protests?
Definitely. So first and foremost, what's going on, everybody? Randall Barnes from HBCU Pulse. I appreciate you for having me on. So essentially, I wrote an article that sort of surmised everything that was going on today. Essentially, the protest happened, and they let some news outlets know in the Florida area. A lot of the resources that I got from my article was from Fox 35, where they talked about the inception of the protest, and they said specifically that it wasn't about Ed Reed. It was about those unsafe living conditions as well as a failure of leadership that they're protesting. But the Ed Reed situation was the icing on the cake. And my sort of summation of it is that Ed Reed was a sign of change for them. And then when he spoke out to what some issues that were going on, they were upset. So they're protesting. For me personally, I believe that they're within their right to protest. I believe they are right in what they're doing. I stand with them, and this is how change happens. And I think that Bethune-Cookman is 1,000% wrong for having, their campus living arrangements like that. And I think that in general, what we're looking at is a very complex situation, because Ed Reed was wrong. And I think that just looking at the comments, I think that I'm amongst a group of people as HBCU alumni. I think we agree that Ed Reed was wrong. However, Bethune-Cookman is just as wrong. And I think that what we're looking at now with this protest is we're not looking at the complexity of this situation. Two things can be true. We can hold Bethune-Cookman to account for what they're doing, but also say, Ed Reed, like, what are you doing cursing out people on social media? That's not what a coach does, especially in a negotiation. And you could have helped more if you were in the house, if you were in Bethune-Cookman, instead of bashing the school. And I don't think he was even talking about these issues. So I stand with the students, and that was essentially what the article that I wrote today was about.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So you indicated that the protests mainly centered around more so the living conditions, but that he was the catalyst for basically his firing was a catalyst. And Doc Holliday, you were able to interview a young man who is at the forefront of these protests. How is he doing, and has he received any backlash for speaking out?
I talked to him. I talked to him yesterday on Twitter. He DM'd me, so I just want to I'll just check to see how he was doing. The backlash. He felt like it was going to be backlash with the interview that he did with me on Saturday evening, and I told him, like, my thing is, when it comes to stuff like that, don't even worry about that, bro. All you need to worry about is going to school and where, just worry about you. My interview with you is my interview with you. If they got any problem, if they got anything to say, I mean, they can always hit me up on Twitter. They can always hit me up. They can come on to my show. I do not care. Because if they want to come with the smoke, I come with the smoke. But just looking at this, when he was telling us about the, doing the protests and stuff and the community cleaning yesterday, which I saw pictures of, that a lot of kids went out there to clean up the campus, to clean around the community, which, like I said, I looked at it as a success, but then you started getting that backlash from Bethune-Cookman, from the authorities at Bethune-Cookman. And the thing about this is, who polices the Board of Trustees? That is the first question. That is the main question you got to ask, because schools, like, when you got schools that haven't dealing with mold, mildew, asbestos, stuff like that, it's a real red flag. You got these, most of these dorms, most of these buildings were built, like, say, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. They probably not have a new building till like the late, the early 2000s or something like that. So when you get into these older buildings, you're going to see the mold and the mildew, dust, asbestos, all this stuff that can cause, health issues, especially upper respiratory health issues, it becomes a problem. Now this is a friend of mine. He did text me earlier. He said that his mom said because Bethune Cookman is a part of the United Methodist Church, that the UMC, when it comes down to the Board of Trustees, they're the ones that have to look into it, and they're the ones that make the decision about either keeping the board or removing people off the board.
And Randall, to follow up what he said about the board and the ability to remove them and this protest, do you think that this has to be a protest that takes on for multiple days before we see any action? And do you know if the students have actually made some demands?
So from what I understand, the demands are that they want the housing arrangements to be cleaned, and also they want those Board of Trustees members moved. Now, I want to bring up from 2021, the Blackburn takeover protest at Howard. Like, there were some direct demands that were met. They occupied the Blackburn building for nearly a month. And then finally, after that time, they got a chance to meet with Dr. Frederick and list their demands. And then things happened. I didn't get a chance to fully follow up after that, but we haven't heard a lot about that since. So this situation it's a little bit different. And I think it's going to take a little bit more prodding from the students to get some changes to happen at Bethune-Cookman. I think that for some protesters and how the media is spinning it, I don't think Ed Reed comes back. I think that ship has sailed. Like, they're not bringing Ed Reed back. But I believe that there are changes that can happen. I think we might see Bethune-Cookman address the board. I think we might see them address what's going on in those living arrangements. But I think it's going to have to be a protest that is coordinated and is going to have to stretch on for days. It has to be, something where it's a give or take, where it's like, hey, like, do this or this is going to happen. Almost like what happened with the Blackburn takeover. Do this or we're not leaving Blackburn. I think that's what the protest has to evolve into and what it's going to evolve into. And then Bethune-Cookman, who at this point has not released a statement, they're going to have to acquiesce in some way.
Jay Blue, can you, as a former employee at Bethune-Cookman, can you just highlight how you're feeling and what do you think about everything that's been transpiring in the last 48 to 72 hours?
I will say that I am happy that the students have finally taken action. It's come years late. They should have done this like the student body 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It should have happened. But I'm happy that they are now taking a stand. I'm hoping that their alum can actually go in and help counsel the students in reference to the demands that need to be met. Because they may need to be, they may need some guiding in reference to the demands that they want in reference to the school. And it just can't be as simple as cleaning the buildings and getting rid of the Board of Trustees, but they need to make sure that it's whatever they demand, it needs to be time bound. So they say, okay, we want to see the Board of Trustees out of there by boom, boom, boom date. Talking to an alum from Bethune-Cookman, and I asked him, I said, what is the relationship like right now with the United Methodist Church? He said the United Methodist Church, from what he knows, and he's like a deacon and was really entrenched in all of that. But he said the United Methodist Church kind of took a step back when they first had that residential hall debacle with the $1 million res halls. They kind of took a step back from Bethune, and they lessened how much financial support they were actually giving the institution. So I'm not sure how quickly will they get back involved in this, the melee that is Bethune Cookman University. I'm hoping that they do get involved and really get in there and kind of force the hand of that Board of Trustees and that administration to do the right thing.
So I think it's interesting that you pointed out how happy you were, and that there's probably a lot of alums that are actually happy as well not and student and staff that are happy, just because and doing my research, I found that there was a lot of different instances where Bethune Cookman alum would try to do protest and would try to get the Board of Trustees removed, but they weren't able to, just because they would protest and then nothing would happen. So I'm wondering if the Board of Trustees is going to give some pushback, thinking that this will result in the same action where people protest and then they just kind of disband.
I don't think so. For me, I think although the Ed Reed situation was a bad one and he was just out of line, I'm glad that they went after a celebrity coach in this case, because if they had never gone after Ed Reed, none of this probably would have saw the light of day. Those students would not have probably protested, and they would have been living in those conditions, until they moved off campus. So that's the one bright spot I can say about them hiring or attempting to hire Ed Reed. And with the Ed Reed hiring or attempt to hire Ed Reed, it made it not just a Florida or a local news, it made it national news because of Ed Reed's name. And so with that being national news, I don't think it's going to go away like they think everything else would have gone away, because it's just such a big story now. And all of the pictures and stuff and the local media getting a hold of it, and of course, we all know that local media is going to make it like HBCUs are the only institutions that have mold issues. I mean, I worked at a PWI in Tennessee that they literally can't use the top floors of 2 of their res halls because they can't afford to put roofs on them, and they have leaks.
We highlighted that a little bit. We highlighted and went over earlier in the show. We highlighted LSU and their current mold problems, and then we looked up and we saw Clemson had some problems. USC is having some problems with mold. So this is not just an HBCU exclusive, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Anybody have, Doc, Randall, do you guys have any closing thoughts on where do you see this going? What do you want to see from here as far as the protest, and what do you see it evolving into?
Well, to me, as far as the United Methodist Church drawing back, too late to draw back now, because you done had this board for a while now, and with excuse me, them hiring interim president at the interim president at the interim president, you had no stability at this school. You had no continuity with the leadership at this school, because the interim president, to me, I'm just saying this, that they're the puppet for the Board of Trustees. If whatever the Board of Trustees puts out there, you just gonna go out here excuse me, and say what they gotta say. But with this, like Jay Blue said, with this the protest, and I agree with this. If it wasn't for them going out there and hiring or just naming in principle that Ed Reed was going to be the next head coach, none of this stuff will be happening right now. And then too, with Ed Reed going out there making that, having that rant on Instagram Live, again, none of this stuff will be happening right now. We won't even know what's going on with Bethune Cookman, and if none of this would have happened right here. So I commend the students for what they're doing. I'm all for student empowerment, because they actually go to the school. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that's there 24/7. They're the ones that got to live there. They're the ones that got to go, get their education there. So I commend for what they're doing. If they have some demands, they need to let the BOT know what the demands are, or said, you gotta give them, you gotta put foot to the fire. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. But I mean, that's my take on it as far as the for the protests and everything.
Randall?
So for me, what I want to see by the end of the day or by tomorrow morning when we wake up, I need for Bethune Cookman to say something. they have to say something in this instance, because you have students that are taking the time out of their lives and their classes to protest and come together. I'm seeing students that are crying, talking about different things they had to go through on campus and the living conditions and the things that's going on at the school that they dreamed about going to. And like, they have to deal with this. And I have asthma. And in the article from Fox 35, I see that there was a young lady that has asthma that was living in the molded dorm and had to go to the hospital. You know, he got, like, I got an inhaler. It's across the room. I feel it. You know, so like for me, that hit me differently, because I'm like, wow, like I saw myself in that young lady for what she's going through. So Bethune Cookman, first and foremost, I don't care about any other demand, anything else that's going on. This happened today and we're talking about it. So they have to say something. Then from there, they need to get leaders in the room, student leaders, and talk about what needs to happen, what's going on. Because if they're not getting rid of these board of trustees, which I think at this point they might need to discuss it or something might need to happen, they need to figure out how to get rid of the mold in the dorms. They need to figure out how to really meet the students where they are and start to make changes to make it better for these students and these student leaders, because they're not protesting because they dislike Bethune-Cookman or they hate Bethune-Cookman. They're protesting because they care and they want their voices to be heard to make their institution better. So I believe that by tonight or tomorrow, Bethune-Cookman needs to say something, because this is going to go a totally different direction if they don't.
And Jay Blue, do you have any thoughts about where you want to see this go from here? What do you think is going to go? What do you think is your final words on the next couple of days with the protests?
I just think that the students need to keep the pressure on. And, you know, as a former employee of the institution, I just know how Cookman runs, and I personally don't see administration coming out and making a statement, holding a press conference, unfortunately. That's just how they have ran since the Jackson administration came in like 2013. It has just not been, the administration has not been transparent, other than when they had Dr. Shrite in for that short period of time as the permanent president, and they hired in April 2019, and he abruptly resigned in March of 2021. So they haven't had steady leadership since him, and he was very transparent. But we got to see kind of, with the students keep the pressure on, kind of what comes out of it. I'm hoping that the United Methodist Church comes in and intervenes and see if they can actually flip that Board of Trustees and just do a whole new Board of Trustees, establish a whole new Board of Trustees, establish a better administration at the institution going forward. And they're going to have to make some hard decisions. And that's why they're in the predicament they are in now. They haven't made the hard decisions, or they haven't been willing to make the hard decisions in reference to cutting back on certain things in order to right the ship of the institution financially. That's what led to the layoffs at the institution, and why they're running on like half staff. So
my final thoughts about this ever evolving situation. I want to make it clear, I do not agree that Ed Reed should be hired. I think that ship has sailed. But I will always advocate for students speaking up and advocate for them to have great living conditions and food, and for the football team to have the correct, proper equipment. It seems like it's actually bigger than just the football team. And as we can see, it's not just the football team that's being affected by the mishandling of some of these situations. So hopefully Bethune-Cookman is able to go ahead and I know you said that the church is responsible for it, but I'm hoping that the administration, who, they have an interim president, that they're able to come together, and are they going to be able to put their pride aside, and for the betterment of the university, are they going to resign?
I could say, as far as with that interim president, he's just an extension of the Board of Trustees. And if people want to know, really, it's funny. Well, Boris just put the list of the Board of Trustees on there. There is one name on there. I actually did an interview about a week and a half ago. It's John Crossman. I did an interview. I didn't even know he was part of the Board of Trustees for Bethune Cookman. Check that out on the channel. Didn't even know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna ask him. I'm gonna reach out to him and see if I can get another interview, because I want to know what he thinks as a board member about what's going on at Bethune. Because if you have so much love for Bethune Cookman, even though he's a white, persuasion, if you have that love for Bethune Cookman, I want to know why the board, you being part of the board and the rest of the board, haven't done anything as far as to what's going on with the conditions at Bethune. That's the main thing I want to know. And another thing is, get your affairs in order. Bethune got to get your affairs in order. And if you don't want to you're not going to get your affairs in order, those students, because you rely on those students to pay the money for the lights and the upkeeping of the buildings and stuff like that, those students going to leave. And when your money dry up, and like Mr. Ford told us, we don't want to have another Morris Brown or any type of HBCU shutting its doors down. We don't need none of that stuff right there. So they need to get their stuff. They got to get their stuff in order.
Just to quickly address Memphis Jag, I would venture that you would definitely need to rewind this live where we literally go over the mold situation at not only LSU, but Clemson. So thank you for tuning into my live, Memphis Jag. Make sure that you rewind it to actually look at those pictures of LSU, as I am not advocating that it's an HBCU only problem. And with that, thank you so much, Randall, Doc Holliday, and Jay Blue, for coming to speak about this protest. Thank you so much for tuning into my live. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. You guys want to shout out your channels? Randall and Doc Holliday, shout your channels out.
You go ahead, Randall.
Okay, yes. So you all can follow HBCU Pulse on Instagram and on YouTube at HBCU Pulse, Twitter and TikTok, the HBCU Pulse. Also, HBC Lead Pass Plus. We have a channel 201. And also, we have the Sirius XM show, HBCU Pulse Radio on Sirius XM, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, on Sirius XM, channel 142, HBCU.
I try to be like you, be on Sirius Radio, bro. Now, everybody can catch me on HBCU Overdrive with Doc Holliday. I do most of my shows on YouTube, but I do broadcast out off Twitter and Facebook Live. Do shows pretty much mainly nightly. We try to talk about try to get the real perspective about HBCUs, the culture, sports, and everything. And if you haven't done it, yet, you can check out. I did a show earlier at 2:00 today, to where we talked about the Black Twitter verse going in on said person that we don't need to be named.
Please. I take it a step back from that space.
Yeah.
So yeah, y'all go on Doc Holliday. He's gonna break it down for you. He's gonna break it all down for you.
Yeah, do the replay. And also, let me too. I am doing a crowdfund. And I'm sending it through Cash App. We talked about this on Saturday night. Gonna send it to the Bethune Cookman football players, so that way they can get the adequate stuff that they need. And it will be earmarked for Bethune Cookman football. Not no other way, no other than anything else but Bethune Cookman football. So if you haven't done My Cash App is Holiday 1925 with the $ in the front of it. So,
all right. And Mr. J Blue, do you want to say anything before we get off?
I'm the only one without a channel. So I don't.
We're
I-
gonna
so I don't have-
we're gonna work on him because he's a good guest host. We're gonna work on him.
But thanks for having me on, though.
All right. And thank you guys for tuning into my show. Make sure you like and subscribe. Right now, I don't have set times and schedules, but I'm definitely excited about bringing you content. I do plan on doing a story on how Alabama State was able to fund their stadium and how Jackson State could possibly do that. And then, of course, I will be in the next coming week and a half, I will be going over Jackson State, D-line, the linebackers, the quarterbacks. So make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Diamond, for tuning in as well.